Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to yet another edition of BW Education, Wednesday Wisdom. Today we have a special guest with whom we'll talk about new age careers, the gig economy, and career counseling. Let me welcome Mr. Nitin Jain, co-founder of OnCourse Vantage. He's a very wanted counselor. Just to give you his background, he studied economics at SRCC, then went to Jamnalal Bajaj, did his MBA, worked in the financial services, investment banking domain, and in 2000 got into education. And for the last 9-10 years, he's fully focused on counseling. And because I have 2 children, I know that Nitin Jain is in huge demand and is really on the top of his career. And that's why we at BW Education are talking to you, Nitin Jain. Welcome, Nitin. First of all, how have been the last 6 months for you, both personally and professionally?
Interesting to say the least. I think it took everyone by surprise, and so did we get impacted. But contrary to what everyone generally feels, honestly, I haven't repented this last 6 months too much. I think it's been really interesting, if I may. I've read more, I've spent more time with family. So personally, I think I've enjoyed this period. I've actually researched more, which never one got the time, whether it's for colleges and other things. So personally, I feel, especially when you're a little bit away from the mainstream bit for a while, it just gives you a better perspective to come out with some more innovative work. So I think we've improvised a lot, and that comes through even on the professional front. I think one has been fortunate, Anurag, that the team has risen up to the occasion. I think the clients have been really, really demanding in this period, which is rightfully so, also because it's confusing for them. So I think the team has risen up well. We've delivered far greater content and value to the clients. So I think it's been overall an enriching experience over this period. Contrary to what everyone feels, I'm not as distraught.
Thank you so much, Nitin. If I may ask you, I keep saying every rain has its rainbow, every cloud has its silver lining, and every night, darkness, has its stars. So tell us, what is the stars and the rainbows that you kind of plucked out of this ecosystem in the last 6 months?
So in terms of how the business has really kind of...
That's right.
So I think, again, knock on wood, the way we view the counseling and the education business, fortunately, we've not been as impacted as a lot of my other friends and, other industries have been. So we've actually done fairly well. There's been a far greater involvement and work, both from a new sign-up basis as also existing clients having a lot more sort of queries, lot more confusion, and hence the interaction has been a lot more. So I think the stars really have been that we are doing as well, if not better, than previous years. Of course, we need to do a lot more value addition also for students and parents. So therefore, I think my sense is that if we continue to do this, get ourselves engaged in more work, greater content, this business will continue to thrive despite, the pandemic and other things. And therefore, we're really, really hopeful and buoyant. So looking favorable.
Thank you, Nitin. What you do not only impacts you and your colleagues, but impacts the lives of a lot of young adults and their family. Because in India, their aspirations are tied to how well a child does. That's the biggest focus in a parent's life. So, and also students, because of suspension of physical going to school or a college, they've been also under a lot of mental pressure. So to be able to get clarity about their future in some way kind of helps them stay grounded and positive. So, what you do has a social impact too, apart from having a business around that. I want to ask you, give us a sense of 2-3 real queries that were unique during this lockdown in terms of career. You counsel, young adults on their careers. Give us, with 1 or 2 examples, give a sense of what kind of discussions you had.
So, Anurag, while it's interesting to bring that up, but we don't directly work a lot on career choices, I think, but I will relate it to how we link education to career, and that's the path that we are necessarily sort of fulfilling. But I think there have been interesting transitions. Again, one of the most interesting ones is especially in the master's domain, right? So a lot of times people who have either been out of jobs or are fearing recession in the industry are using this time to reskill themselves and try and get a job, try and get a master's in the interim. So what they're doing is they're using this time to say, listen, can I go and get into a master's program, skill ourselves using this recessionary period? The other bit is there is a clear mandate that is shifting towards a more ROI-driven approach on employability, PR, visa as an output. So people are looking at far more those kind of options which will yield more career possibilities from a settling down perspective. So suddenly the likes of, let's say, Canada, for example, huge demand for that, both at the undergrad and master's level, because it's easier to get a PR. So I think those transitionary changes is what we look at. People also want to skill themselves across disciplines. So it's no longer like, oh, I'm a computer science expert and I'll only follow that. They're trying to merge disciplines, cross-skill themselves. Those are some of the things from a career to education linkage path that we observe. I don't know if that answers your question adequately, or would you like me to follow?
Absolutely. It doesn't answer that. And I agree with you. Today, people want to upskill themselves. They want to find new opportunity. They want to find new gigs. They want to study in new geographies. Families want to possibly go to new geographies because it is more lucrative for their children to study there, both from a quality and pricing standpoint. So you've been able to bring that across. Let me go on to the next thing. Today learning has become, the learning cycles have shortened. So earlier you'd do something in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. But today you got to constantly learn and relearn. What is your advice to parents, students who will watch your interview? Advice to professionals, parents, students about learning, about upskilling, about reskilling. Because that makes them more employable. That builds a new career in line with the post-COVID economy. So what is your advice to professionals and parents?
So it's a very pertinent question and close to my heart. I'm also a parent of 2 young adults at home, and we often have this discussion as well. So I think one of the outcomes or one of the paths to it in my mind is to treat higher education not as an end objective, right? I think, and this is a little bit in contrast to probably what you're saying, I'm saying the moment you try and establish that as a means to an end and use higher education, especially the undergrad experience, as more an empowering, enriching bit. So therefore the focus is more cross-disciplinary, more on aspects like how the quality of life can be improved. What are the different aspects where you will empower yourself more than just getting that job? The moment you're on that path at the undergrad level, at least, I think it will really, really impact your overall holistic approach. And this is somewhere in sync even with what the new education policy is sort of propagating, and that entire focus is there. So that I think is the largest bit. The others are the usual cliche, Anurag. I think keep reading, I kind of be in touch with what is happening in the industry, because flexibility is going to be the name of the game. So I think the moment you're in tune,
you're saying being nimble-footed, being resilient, being on the go, spontaneous. When you say
these are great objectives, I just feel the moment you prescribe them to students or parents, it gets more prescriptive rather than sort of working with them to show them new opportunities, kind of take them through different career possibilities and alternate careers that are emerging. Therefore, keep a very open mind.
Nitin, tell us, what are these alternate careers? Give a sense of those.
So earlier, and Anurag, I think we guys are of that generation where it used to be science, humanities, commerce, leading up to 4 or 5 professions. And if you were really, really savvy, you turned out to be finance and stuff like that. Today, I think with e-commerce, with music, with design, the interplay of social media, there is just so much more that you can do. So just, if you're writing content, the scope is so much larger. People are using economics not from a finance perspective, but it could be from a development perspective, public policy perspective, international relations perspective. So I think the jobs have opened up the willingness of the employer to actually experiment with different disciplines is a lot more, because I think the moment basic intelligence is there, they're examining all the different sort of opportunities. So I think alternate careers is a lot to do with the way businesses are being run, social media being really, really one at the top of that. So students don't have to follow a traditional path of education and careers as what you and I possibly had at that time.
Fantastic. I want to ask you, how did you pivot from being a banker to being an education entrepreneur or a creative entrepreneur? Tell us your journey.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that now. And it's at the two extreme ends of the spectrum. So when I was in business school, I think clearly the race was fast at that time. Everybody wanted to be in the highest paying job, fastest moving careers. Clearly finance was, I'm talking of mid 90s. That's when, finance was at the helm. One got into it. One was naturally inclined towards numbers, math, finance was there. And I enjoyed doing that. But I think over a 3 to 4 year period, and that's all it took for me to realize that how transactional I was becoming in every aspect. So everything was a right trade or a wrong trade. It was a 0 or a 1. It was reflecting in relationships. It was impacting every aspect of one's life. And at that stage, especially when you come from a background where you've been deeply curious about academics in general, you've been a good student is a very relative word, but you've been inclined and, pedantic in nature. It didn't take long to move as a shift. So what we started out was actually an entrepreneurial venture to set up an educational bit. So what you needed more operational, more understanding, more logistical things, but one slowly gravitated towards the pure aspect of education. And I think that transition took 2 to 3 years, but it was very swift and thoroughly enjoying every moment of it, Anurag.
Thank you, Nitin. Nitin, when there's entrepreneurship pre-COVID and there's entrepreneurship post-COVID. We live in resilient times. How have you reimagined your offering, your business? What is the pivot that you've taken in the last 6 months that will hold you in good stead in future?
Okay, so interesting that an entrepreneur like yourself is asking me questions on entrepreneurship, but I will try and sort of take it forward. So the way I think clearly what we have done, a couple of things which have kind of helped us, and we intend to do that, is one is very, very simple, this thing of having alternate plans. I think that's something, so not only a A and a B, but a plan C, D, E is what I strongly recommend every entrepreneur to kind of have that in place. The second bit, which we have noticed has worked well, is a very, very close, empathetic relationship to your stakeholders, which is essentially, in our case, both our clients and our employees. I think the motivation level of employees is something you need to be so mindful of. They've done such a good job in rising up to the occasion. So, regular chats with them, a lot of engagement with them, work other than work is what one is doing. Clients, we are just talking more. I think it's just important that because their confusion, their queries are a lot more. So we are trying to talk to them as far as possible and engage that. The other thing, which is slightly more business-like, and one is almost going to the good old way of learning business or doing business, is very, very close watch. So almost like a daily P&L, Anurag, if it may. So therefore, what are the redundancies in the business, how you can kind of innovate quickly. So if you want to sort of set up an India counseling bit, suddenly you overnight should be in a position to turn that up. So I think a very, very close monitoring of your business, profit, loss, costs, revenues. Unlike the good, where you decentralize it, I think we're trying to centralize it again to say, have a very good sort of handle on that. That's what has helped us as an organization over the last 6 months. And I think that's what we hope to continue taking forward as well.
Thank you so much, Nitin. Nitin, over the last 20 years, you made a difference to the careers of people. Hopefully you had an impact. I know you had an impact. What gives you more satisfaction, the impact or the money?
I would be lying if I said only the impact, but I'll qualify that. One obviously is in a professional setting. You're working because you're working and making profit is impacting the lives of a lot of people. So money is not secondary for sure. But clearly I may qualify by saying there was a lot more money in the finance sector. Okay. There was a lot more sort of engagement with that. But Anurag, I think if I give you an analogy, like let's say the number of nights that I have stayed up to get a call from a parent at 3:30 in the night to say my kid got into Stanford gives you or into any other college, gives you far more joy than getting a trade right or on the finance bit of it. So I think by then the money aspect has eroded. the gratification of students getting into top colleges or getting into their dream school, getting a job is a lot more. And honestly, that joy is far ahead of the money that you made from that relationship. So I don't know if there is a right answer to that, but I would continue to do this, sort of keep enough profit, work well, impact the lives of people, and yet get the joy that one gets of the gratification of people's careers. So that's been our success story.
Thank you. But then in your own way, you've chased your own dream. You're doing what you love. Confucius said, if you choose your hobby as your profession, you don't have to work. That is a blessing.
I had this quote, Anurag, lying in my office, this thing that if what Confucius said, that enjoy, what you do what you enjoy doing and you don't have to work again.
Can I tell you, Nitin, I met you for the first time and I told you how I got to know about you.
Yeah.
Through my daughter and my wife. I think you're my friend Surya Soni's batchmate, right?
Sorry, what's the name you said?
Surya Soni.
Oh, that name's so familiar. From SRCC?
No, he was your Jamnal Lal Bajaj batch.
Okay.
Either he passed out in 95 or 96. He worked in the media sector with me.
Right.
Now in Jakarta, he's the MD of a media services firm. But can I tell you, for a long time, for the last 10 years, I wanted to write a book on careers. Because, I'll tell you about my career path. I don't talk about it too often, but I grew up in Old Gurgaon, not the new Gurgaon. I went to a convent school there called the Our Lady of Fatima Convent High School.
It's a good school, I've heard about it. Yeah.
I mean, no question. I mean, jokingly, let me tell you, in spite of people like me, it's a good school. It was outstanding quality of teachers, very innocent school. So I went to the old school. There is a new school, and the old school has become now the junior school. And then I got a little lesser marks than my parents expected. So I went to a government college, and I was so paranoid that I topped, except one subject, I think every subject. I really shown academically. And then I went, my parents kept telling me, after 12th, if you get through into engineering, life set up with padne ki zarurat nahi hai. So I took it a little too seriously. I went into a good engineering school, and there for the first time, I went to a hostel. So, I stopped studying after the first year, and let me say that very candidly. And, I built lifelong relationships. I had fun. But I'm not advocating that you don't study, please. I don't fan that notion, you have to be a dropout to be successful. You can be great in studies and still be super successful.
I think that happens in the movies or in America in 2 or 3 instances. But other than that, I don't know.
You can still be good at academics and still do well. I mean, possibly they're connected. And then I was lucky enough to get into an institution called MDI. I normally say I got lucky because I'm from the first batch. People like me got in when the quality control was really bad. Because less people applied. First year didn't have CAT. That's a fact. So I, by the way, didn't apply for CAT. And my other saying is that if I applied, I would have got through in IIM Ahmedabad. Who knows? Now it doesn't really matter. But I went to MDI and I feel I'm blessed. And then from the campus, I got a job at Mastech, the IT listed services.
The software company.
And there were a couple of months. So I met a friend who introduced me to his brother-in-law. He was setting up Colliers Jardine. So I ended up joining Colliers Jardine. My boss was an Australian. And I remember when I told my father that I'm going to join Colliers Jardine, he asked me, Colliers Jardine, what does it do? He studied at BITS Pilani. So he knew a bit about things. And I told him that it's a real estate consulting firm. It does broking, research. So he got on to the broking part. And उन्होंने मुझे हिंदी में बोला कि दलाली करनी थी तो कितना पढ़ने लिखने की क्या जरूरत थी. So I still joined Colliers, and that's where I built relationships, high net worth individual. And then I joined AMF Bowling.
Of course, yeah.
And Deep Kalra used to be my boss. He used to be my customer at Colliers. After Colliers, I joined Chesterton. So he was my customer at Chesterton. And one day...
I worked with Deep as well, again, in this thing, because Deep was a parent of the student worked through us to get into Proud, yeah.
Okay, great. So, he was my boss, he was my client, and he offered me a job. And on second time when he offered me, I joined. Of course, bowling didn't work in India. So Deep shut down that venture. I didn't do well. We couldn't sell enough, right? I mean, the cost of real estate, from a consumer standpoint, the pricing of bowling, it didn't work. And then I joined HTA. That's where I thought of Exchange for Media. which was I wanted to build a marketplace to buy and sell media time and space. So with another MDI batchmate and a junior from engineering, we started the company.
Right.
And Exchange for Media is today synonymous with India's number one website on marketing, advertising, media communication. And it's been profitable 14 years. And in our ecosystem, we are impactful and we have a point of view. So, and then almost 7 years back, I acquired Business World and I lost more hair. So I've been wanting to write a book on careers because I've had unusual careers. And now that I'm on the board of MDI, I want to make sure I contribute by suggesting new age career. But maybe you and me. And then I read this book 4 years back by Sonia. She again studied in a top-notch. I am worked as a banker, then joined Mint, and now she writes books. And I read her book. It is such a good book. It is so real. I've forgotten the name of the book, but it is about new age careers. And since then when I met her, first I told her I'm like this. I told her, by the way, I wanted to do this for 10 years. Second, I should have been in the book because you talk about unusual things. I've done unusual things to get where I am. So, anyway, so I've been thinking of writing another book because things have changed in 4 years. And she did a fab job of writing that book. Fab job. I mean, it's very difficult to sustain a book. But the way she structured it, the storytelling, the people she featured, the summary in the last pages, what you can learn from books about this aspect, right. What you can learn from movies. So that book was so nice. I've given it to my daughter, Prarthana Batra, but I'm not sure she's read it. I've twice tried to push it with her.
So somebody has a question, which is that what are the thoughts on the skill gap in India and the opportunity to bridge that? So I think immense. There is clearly the skill gap in India exists. And Paul, to your question, I think the root bit of it lies and is somewhere linked to the new education policy as well, is the whole framework of liberal arts education. I think skill is a very misunderstood concept where it becomes very, very job-oriented skill. But I think what the whole format of liberal arts education does in context is that it skills you for every aspect. So what liberal arts, for the benefit of a lot of you, may actually suggest is that you go through a range of different subjects, which ranges from languages, literature, politics, religion, economics, psychology, maths, sciences, everything. As a result, you become a cross-disciplinary learner. And then when put in any situation, you can adapt your learnings to suit the need and fulfill that requirement. I think if you go back to the Greek civilization, and there were all the leading, people like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, they were great scientists, orators, legislative people, great science. They were sort of philosophers, psychologists, everything, which is what the need of the hour is. So to answer your question, I think if we can formulate a liberal arts education system like it exists in the US, we'll be able to bridge that gap a lot more. So the new education policy is actually formulating that and propagating that immensely. So one hopes that it will happen. One of the other things possibly one could talk of and which is topical and maybe one can cover it, is the new education policy, and maybe I'll use this time to discuss what is the likely impact of the new education policy. But I just wanted to kind of understand from somebody in the team, can you suggest are we getting this live back? Cool. Just to lend context to what I do for some of the people who are live, I run a company called OnCourse, which is a leading counseling and consulting firm. We work with high school students and college students for their applications and their journey to get into a good college. So it's not just a application sort of exercise we do. We help them build their profile, carve out the right opportunity for them, and then help them get into a dream college. So that's what we've been doing over the last 10 years. And I've worked with many students who've got into schools such as Stanford, Caltech, MIT, Oxford, Cambridge, Berkeley, all the top schools across the continent. So that's what one does. I think I'll wait for Anurag to join in and then possibly sort of take forward the discussion. Apologize for the break that's happening. So somebody has a question which is relevant, which is a student gets into a top school only because of their own credentials, and how do we support them and to get admission? I think, Amit, to your query, we help them build those credentials. I think to be able to make them understand what does it take to get there, and then carve out that journey. So people join us, let's say 9th to 11th grade. We will help them carve out different engagements, including community engagement, including career validations, get them to do the right kind of projects which are close to their heart. So keeping all of those in mind, I think we show them that path. Of course, they need to cover that journey themselves, but we are facilitating that, right? So it's like saying a tutor doesn't really help get you. You're already good and you'll get that 100. But I think we need to show that direction. We need to show them what is it that colleges really look for and care about, the clearly avoidable do's and don'ts. And the experience that we've had with multiple students getting to top schools, we know what story sells.
So another question is that all of us know what the what the National Education Policy 2020 is about. We read that in articles, we read that it's all over the media. But what is your personal thought on the same, that if it is implemented, then how the future of education industry will be? How do you think?
I know there's been a lot of debate about how good or the policy is and how will it be implemented. So other than the logistics of how it will be implemented, in my own experience and what I've made out of it, I feel the policy is extremely progressive. I think what we are trying to do, and let's try and break it down to from a school and a college level into two different aspects. So what I see at the school level itself, what they're trying to do is very progressive because they're trying to widen the scope. So on a pure outreach level, they're trying to sort of engage different facilities to make sure that the outreach, and they've given numbers in terms of how much number more would they come under the mainstream education format. So nobody can deny that's progressive. Secondly, which is, I think the system that they have done, which is the 5+3+3+4 format, is so good because it's in a way linked to their cognitive learning stages as well. Unlike so from 3 to 18, the way they have broken that up as is purely linked to, and this is science, right? Their cognitive order of learning corresponds to that. So that way it's extremely progressive. Plus at the school level, now what they're saying is to multi-skill themselves. So they're trying to encourage you to code, learn different languages, work of all that, which is a new genre learning skill that everybody needs to adopt. So I think at the school level, they're trying to do a lot more progressive stuff if they manage it. I think at the college level, I'm of the firm believer and of firm belief that education at the college level cannot be a 3-year degree. I think there's just far too much to learn, especially if you want to embrace the liberal arts format of education, which is cross-disciplinary, which you need to incorporate different learning styles. So I think by giving an option that you can exit at 3 years, get a degree, but continue to learn 4 years, do adequate research, is lending so much more depth. And to the point that somebody just made about skilling, I think that opportunity gives you a wider perspective. So I think overall, there's every step which is leading to a progressive look towards this policy. Some people have also said that it'll lead to privatization in education space, but we live in a capitalist economy. That's good. It'll be better for the consumer. We will get far greater level of competition, and that'll augur well for the industry as a whole. So my take is, all in all, a big thumbs up to this policy. I don't know how the execution will happen, but I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we will evolve towards that. So my take is, let's hope it works out.
Okay, so it is like the next question basically is more like a continuation of the previous one. You have highlighted the positive impacts that NEP 2020 will be having based on all the changes that are supposed to be implemented. But what happens is very few people actually talk about the challenges that the education industry or overall the business industry will be facing and will be challenged with. So if you are, even though you are advocating, and most of the people are advocating for the NEP, if you are asked to mention the downsides or the challenges that comes along with NEP 2020, what do you think they will be?
So given that you heard my take on it being such a strongly positive outlook, I think the big challenge I have is the implementation. I think there needs to be a very, very clear path plan as to how this implementation will need to sort of lay out, because less that happens, it's going to be a fall flat strategy, right? So I think if they're talking of upskilling, multi-skilling at the school level, they must be in tune with what are the new genre skills that are required. So I think somebody needs to handle them very, very strongly for its implementation. And that's the only flip side. For me, privatization of education is not a flip side. I feel if managed well, it'll go on well. So yeah, not too much there. Anurag, welcome back to
Thank you. We were talking about this book, so we must get together someday to discuss this book. Let's go back to careers, the gig economy, and your predictions. Now, we're talking in the backdrop of the national education policy, right? Which talks about multi-skilling, which talks about, multi-functional universities, Now, do you think it will happen as a reality? Second, it also talks about grooming, personality skills, soft skills. It talks about autonomy, right? Now, whatever you learn. I learned English because my English teacher, Mrs. Yadav, was just a terrorist, not in a good way. She would make sure that Renan and Martin we knew like from first grade. Yeah, that cannot be taught, spoken English. And English is the language of business. I have lots of respect for Hindi. Meri Hindi sudrid hai. And I'm going to launch Business World in Hindi and hopefully other Indian languages. But, how do you get those skills later in life? It's very difficult in my view.
No, so I think while you were gone, we discussed about this concept of liberal arts education. And I think at the heart of the NEP, as also the American system of education, lies this system of liberal arts. And while we covered it, but just to kind of people who are joining in now as well, the whole idea of liberal arts is that from a very early age, you cross-discipline yourself and you don't box and compartmentalize yourself to be a specific discipline expert.
PCM.
Right?
When you were growing up, it was PCM.
So and if you were not in the brighter souls, then you did humanities, and that's turned way now. So today, what the liberal arts policy education system is propagating is that you do a bit of sciences, bit of social sciences, some creative writing, take up performing arts, and then combine all of that to help influence your decision-making skills in a far greater manner. The moment your basics, your fundamentals and your foundations are on that premise, going ahead, you will have the willingness, adaptability to upskill in any vertical domain. So I think we should try and therefore fundamentally change the system, especially at the school and college level, to have as much broader base. Don't compartmentalize yourself, don't box yourself, which is what we hope to achieve in this policy as well. So in the new education policy.
And Nitin, you right up front, you talk about the role of books, movies, extracurricular. So when children are preparing for a new career, how much does their excellence in something else than studies help them in terms of, admission and so on and so forth?
Right. So I'll break it into two parts, Anurag. One is how much it helps them in general, which everybody knows. So that'll be like spinach is good for everyone, clearly. So that part is good. It gives them multiple perspectives. I think it helps them build sensibilities. That's the other part. So it's not just about reading different genres of literature or creative bit. I think it helps them build and understand difference of right and wrong. It helps them build opinion. So that's on the aspect that it helps them.
Life skills.
Yes.
Life skills.
But on the admissions front, what colleges want to see is an interesting person, a curious person, somebody who's risen above the mandate of what was required to be done to do something extraordinary. So unless you have set yourself to do something remarkably different, then every Indian application is the same. Everybody has a 95%. Everybody has good grades, good SATs. How do you differentiate one from the other? Is when you have engaged yourself in different activities. So that's how it sets you apart and what we call as a standout factor. So that's the role some of these activities do.
Thank you so much. Now I want to ask you, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly thinking of improving your offering, solidifying it. Right up front, you said I got time for research, which you possibly didn't get that much time earlier because of travel or being working. Now we have more time, we save time on travel, on unnecessary socializing, so on and so forth. Now tell us, if we were to talk to you in 2-3 years, do you think you'll work on a product? Look at what's happened to Byju's. products. They bought a company called White Hat Junior, which built a product for coding. So what you are uniquely positioned, Nitin, to build a product for excellence at a certain age. Are you looking to build a product like that?
I think we haven't even scratched the surface of counseling to begin with. I think the entire mandate on counseling can extend manifold. I think both geographically, in terms of pure scale, right? Like that's one part. So the business itself has got tremendous opportunity. So the way I'm looking at building a new product is to keep improvising on how well you are able to give the offering. And especially in what we have witnessed over the last 6 months, Anurag, forget my business. In any business, you need to skill yourself to give absolute clarity and advice to the customer. So if we need to show them multiple options available, which exist, no, it's not just going to be US, UK, Canada only. You need to understand the nuances of an education system in Italy, in Germany, because cost is going to become a huge factor going ahead. People's financial net worths have changed. So I think we need to first understand the whole ecosystem well, incorporate that in our offering, and to that extent, I think we have a long way to go in the counseling industry as a whole. So we've just scratched the surface. So we will continue to do that going ahead as well.
But all, there is mentoring, there is counseling, which is what you do, career counseling. And there is something I call reverse mentoring. While you teach all these young adults a lot of things, you give them a certain direction. But tell me, what have you learned from these young people? The process of reverse mentoring must have kicked in at some point. So tell me if you learned something from.
It's incredible that you say that, because I do a lot of this part of what you're saying, reverse mentoring. And I'll tell you how we do this. So over the years, we have many students who have gone to multiple universities all over the world, right? So we try and create forums where we get them back whenever they're here in December break, summer break. We try and tell them to organize sessions where all they're doing is sharing their experiences, whether it's on the quality of education, the system of education, the nuances of the pitfalls of doing your laundry, to managing your food, to doing your assignments in the same breath. So all of that has actually helped build our learning curves in the advice that we can give to students to help decide what fitment is better for them. So if I have two kids who have come in, one from Berkeley and one from a small liberal arts college, I can actually now visualize exactly, without even going there, how life will be there. And therefore, in our advice to students, we can incorporate that. So I think that process comes a lot. And once your students are in touch, if you help them get into their dream school, they come back, they're always in touch and they mentor you. They sometimes come back and work with us as well, which is the other thing. And they're a part of the team again. So overall, there is a lot of reverse mentoring that you need to do. And that's your upskilling in a lot of ways.
Thank you so much, Nitin. Tell me, एक कहावत है कि घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. So जब आप, when you talk to your children, you said you have 2 children.
Yeah.
What is the conversation like?
It is extremely interesting to say that I counsel a lot of kids, right? But when it came to counseling my own son to get into college, I decided not to work with him on that. And I had my counterpart from my team where we were at an arm's length and we used to have meetings just like any other parent would do. I think it just improved the just our nature of our relationship with our kids. I think if we were doing that enforcement, it wouldn't have worked out that well. So to your point, which Ghar Ki Murgi is truly dal barabar, one would take the same point coming from somebody else far more seriously. And I think that's the basis of our business also. If every parent started to counsel their kids, God help us with our industry, right? Nobody would come to us. So I think one is trying to do exactly that. And to that extent, I think I don't want to spoil that equation. So it's best if they take help from someone else and we maintain a good, positive, healthy relationship at home.
Fantastic. My last question. As I told you, your name came up in a conversation about the best counselors, in 2-3 best counselors, with 1 or 2 other, and clearly you achieved in some way what you wanted to. It's a journey. There's a lot more to achieve. There are more milestones to be kind of experienced. But tell us, do you have a bucket list? If yes, what is that?
Bucket list related to what? Sorry, Anurag?
your life, bucket list. What does Nitin Jain, when you turn 50, what does Nitin Jain want to achieve? Was it 60 or 70?
Yeah, I'm
50
glad
more
that you did
realistic,
say that.
right?
Are you already 50? Because I'm not. But
You're clearly very young and you look young.
the usual bucket list of travel, etc. I'm not going to inundate that conversation, but I think what I truly would want to do is actually to go to a lot of universities in some form or the other, try and understand the vibe that is there, and that's something that I want to do. So do the good old way of touring colleges and sort of go meet them there is what I would definitely like to do. And over the years, whenever there's time, I hope to achieve that.
And Nitin, clearly you're an optimistic person. You're a positive person because you're hoping that the COVID will certainly go away soon and we'll be able to visit universities.
Yes.
Because this shall too pass. I wanted to ask you my last question, though. I said, is there a playbook to deciding a career? If there are some thumb rules to be used, what are those general thumb rules? Of course, every child is unique. His or her gift is unique. Their aspirations are unique.
Right.
But if you had to put a playbook, let's say a thumb rules, this is what you got to do, then what would that be?
So hard to sort of position it, but I think if somewhere one could draw up a Venn diagram with, let's say, the 3 sets could possibly be what you like to do, right? And that's something more passion-based, and it could be singing, music, playing golf, working with students, whatever. Second is, so this is what you like to do. What are you good at? Maybe what you like to do, you may not necessarily, and draw up this thing, and what is going to pay the bills. So if I draw all those 3 and there is an intersection point, hopefully with the kind of career opportunities there would be, right? So given that, I think that's the sweet spot that you should try and hit for. You will not know it early up. Trust me, only by experiences you will get there. But I think somewhere I feel I've hit that sweet spot, honestly, and that's my.
There is a thing. I've hit that sweet spot. I mean, I didn't start in media. I went to an engineering school, a business school, and this is my sweet spot. This is what I'm like doing. This is what I'm good at, and clearly there is a business. I built one media company, acquired another, grown it to a different level. So clearly, this is if one can find his or her ikigai.
Yeah, that's the ikigai. Actually, honestly, it's a lot about the ikigai, but it's hard to kind of explain. But I think that Venn diagram to me works really well because that small little subset of 3 sets and the Venn diagram is what classifies it. I don't know if that confuses a lot of people, but Anurag, it worked for me clearly.
Thank you so much, Nitin. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Likewise.
Thank you for doing what you do. It makes a difference. We wish you luck and we look forward to many more conversations and hopefully electricity won't go in between them. But we still admit, and the beauty is this will go into the main magazine, it will go in the BW Education magazine, education website, and the video will be shared on our YouTube channel. So the content that we've created today has life beyond today's live chat. So thank you so much. God bless you, and we look forward to another conversation with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
There is one question, so let me see. What is other than Ikigai, what is the diagram? Kamal Mehta is asking. Kamal Mehta, it's very simple. What Nitin said is, first, find out what you're good at. Second, what do you like? So sometimes they may be said. And third, if it also is about what can make money. If there is a sync in that the common thing is your sweet spot. That's your Ikigai.
Yeah.
That's what you can possibly do. So it's very simple. Next time I'll draw it, but we have your email. I'll try to get it created visually and send it to you. Thank you, Nitin. God bless.
Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Anurag. Good luck for your seminar.
Yeah, it's going on in the evening. We have the Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. 40 Young Entrepreneurs. It's our annual issue on entrepreneurship. We had Karan Bajaj, Rajan Anandan. I can go on. Some fantastic speakers.
Wish you got
maybe we should get you next time on that. And I'll definitely ping you on this book on careers because it's been in my mind earlier. And I'm going to send you Sonia's book because my daughter has 2 copies. So I'm going to send you one. It's a lovely book. You may know all that subconsciously and you're doing it without kind of reading because that's the kind of thing you're talking of, right?
Right.
So and again you said about how do you discover? There's a lot of subconscious If it's in your subconscious, it's manifests. If you put it out in the universe, it manifests. There's a lot of serendipity. It happens. You know, when you want something, it's God finds a way to make it happen. That's what I believe in. My life is an example of that. You know, not that I wanted to lose that, except that mostly. So thank you so much. You won't understand.
Right.
Take care, Nitin. Bye.
All the best.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.